Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Andrew Fizakis with Astronomers Without Borders. Welcome to Global Astronomy Month 2025. This is the 16th edition of Global Astronomy Month. Can't believe it, how many years we've been doing this, but this is the world's largest astronomy festival. We're in 143 different countries with thousands of members in our community. We are here basically building community through astronomy. The power of the night sky, it can't be denied. It unites people everywhere. And we're so excited because we have a whole month long of celebrations. This is just one of many lineup of live streams, in-person virtual events that we have throughout the month of April. It really is a fantastic few weeks of great time of learning, experiencing, connecting with people everywhere around the world, the different cultures, religions, and creeds. It's just amazing. Astronomy is so powerful in its ability to really build bridges, break down borders. And that's what Astronomers Without Borders is all about. We invite you to become part of our community, become a member. We'll have a link to our membership form in the comment section in the next few minutes, which was going to be there and for you to fill out. Check out our website. Check out Global Astronomy Month also. It's at gam-awb.org. That website is gam-awb.org. That's where you'll find all the lineup of all the exciting events we have for Global Astronomy Month. And also, of course, if you like what you see, of course, please do show your support. Donate to Astronomers Without Borders. We really help build the community through science outreach. We do all kinds of things like sending solar eclipse glasses to underserved communities, other outreach resources too across the world, all kinds of really neat projects that only AWB in the world can do. And we do it with people in the community working together. So today is really special. We've got a really great event for you, something very within the wheelhouse, I think, of AWB. And we're really excited because we have a great lineup of people joining us today. And our first introduction is I'm going to hand this over very soon to my host, moderator, Dr. Moya McTier, who is AWB's chairperson of board of director, chairperson. And Moya is also an astrophysicist, a folklorist, author. She just does everything. It's incredible. I see you all over the place. Hi, Moya.
Hey, Andrew. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for putting together an amazing Global Astronomy Month, including this diverse perspectives in astronomy panel. I'm so excited that we got to put this together. So I am joined by three people who I've had the pleasure of working with in various ways throughout my career as a science communicator. I'm going to bring them on one at a time, and I have a little introduction for them, and then I'll let them add something to that if they would like to. So first, I'd like to introduce Yasmin Catricheo, who is the CEO of Astronomers Without Borders and is representing the Southern Hemisphere for us today. Yasmin, welcome. Would you like to say anything else about yourself?
Sure, thank you. Hi, Moya. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, Yasmin Catricheo. I am originally from Chile. I am from the south of Chile. I am also indigenous. I'm Mapuche, and I came to the United States 7 years ago. And since then, I've been working in education, outreach, and doing projects that help to recover indigenous knowledge, ways of knowing. And I'm super excited being here today and share a little bit of the knowledge from my community, from the Mapuche people from the south of Chile, and also learn from the other panelists. Thank you, Moya.
Yay, thank you so much, Yasmin. All right, next we have Dr. Seven Rasmussen, an astrobiologist and writer of both science fiction and science fact. Seven, thanks for being here today. What else would you like to add to that?
Hi, I'm also a queer and neurodivergent person. I'm a community college professor, and also I'm excited because my first book comes out at the end of this year.
That's so very exciting. You will be getting an email from me about having you on my podcast to discuss your book. You want to give a little hint right now? What's it about?
Oh, it's about the Drake equation. It is about that 7 variable expression that tells us how many civilizations we could talk to in the Milky Way right now. And it's all the science behind how we get from the beginning to the end.
Very exciting. I can't wait to read that. And last but not least, we have soon to be Dr. Dakotah Tyler, an exoplanet scientist and science communicator extraordinaire. Thanks for being here, Dakotah. What else would you like to add?
Thanks for the intro, Moya. Yes, I defend my dissertation in a little bit less than a month, so very, very soon to be. Excited about that. And my introduction to astronomy is a little bit non-traditional. I used to play sports and I ended up getting hurt. So when I do my science communication, I think that I really have a strong passion to try and loop in people who maybe aren't interested in science or definitely don't have the science background, because that used to be me. And somebody did a really good job of that with me when I was younger. And well, not that much younger. I was like 23. It seems young now.
Babies, basically.
Right. And I want to be able to do that for other people as well. So super excited to be here and chat with everybody. Really looking forward to it.
Excellent. Yeah, I think we're about to have a great conversation. Uh, uh, we're here for Astronomers Without Borders. We're here for AWB's Global Astronomy Month. And AWB's motto is One People, One Sky. And it is true, we are all under one sky, but we're billions of people, each with our own relationship to it. And I gathered these three panelists because I think that, well, I know that they each work and connect with space from different angles and with different approaches. So I think that they all think about space a little bit differently. And I want to dig into that in this panel. I want to better understand their perspectives of space and how they share their perspective of space with other people. So hopefully that is what we'll all know a little bit better by the end of this panel. Starting with a question for each of you, I want to know what first made you interested in or fall in love with the sky. We can start with Seven. You're at the top of my screen.
Okay. So I grew up in like rural Appalachia. So I actually had a really great night sky, and my parents would take me out to look at have like, get out the sleeping bag and sleep in the backyard and, have a little telescope and look at the stars in the night sky. And so my parents introduced me to the night sky at a very young age, and I really just had an amazing view of it. I grew up with being able to see the Milky Way and being able to see the Pleiades and to watch the planets pass. And so from this like very like rural little community, I had a great view of the night sky.
Nice. And you knew then that you wanted to study it professionally?
So I had a lot of special interests as a child, and space was one of them for a long time. I think then I moved on to geology, and then I was really into like all the like old Egyptian culture, and then I was into glass bottles, and there were many special interests over time. But obviously, space is the one that I returned to.
Yeah, of course. Dakotah, what about you? What got you into this field?
Yeah, it's interesting hearing Seven's answer. Growing up and actually seeing the night sky, that was never something that I did. I never had that experience. I really got into astronomy while I was rehabbing for an injury. I was on the couch and I just started watching documentaries. So it was mostly like high production science communication documentaries like Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson. And it was almost the opposite of the real thing. It's kind of all 3D animations and cool visualizations. And I realized that, like there are other planets out here that are orbiting other stars, and there's actually too many to count. And I think for me at the time, it represented like somewhere else to shift my focus, and expanded this little cloudy bubble over my athletic career into like this expansive vast universe. And I think it like triggered my curiosity. It gave me something else to focus on, and then the more and more that I learned about it, the more amazing everything seems to be. So it was I think it was really heavily influenced by really good science communication as a younger adult, not even as a kid.
Yeah, I am curious if you have a sense for what it meant for you to come to astronomy later in life. And if you don't have an answer for that now, I can give you time to noodle on it and come back to you.
Yeah, what do you mean a sense for it? Like something perhaps that was different for me than for people who knew about it early on? Yeah, I think that I'm much more open to, which I'm excited to talk about on this panel. I'm much more open to try and like go a little bit deeper and find more meaning in things that if you just grew up knowing all these facts about the universe, it's kind of like a matter of fact, you know, like this is the science, this is what the science says. It's not really emotional, it's not really spiritual, that's not the point. And I understand that from a science perspective, but having been a person that didn't have science really play any role in my life, I have all of those things, right? You can't just have those emotional vacuums and say, oh, everything I've ever felt is actually just dopamine and serotonin doing things in my brain, and it doesn't mean anything. And these are just all science facts. So I feel like something that influences me and has continued to since I got into astronomy is trying to make that connection, that emotional or that spiritual connection with the universe.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I see that we're already showing that people can come into astronomy in different ways from different perspectives. Yasmin, what about you? How'd you get interested in astronomy and what you do now?
So I wasn't very interested in astronomy when I was little. I did grow up in the south of Chile. I grew up in a rural area. There was like I think like 7 houses and then a little school. A little school that had only 3 classrooms, but you have 6 grades. So you have to divide the space where like the resources that you had. So I never was very into, but I do remember when I was little, living there in the rural area next to the Andes Mountains, that my dad, one time we were outside playing, it was nighttime, and he looked at the star and say, hey, there are the Tres Marias, the belt of Orion. The Tres Marias, we call them in Chile. And then we are 3. I have 2 more sisters, so we're 3 girls. And my dad used to say, in Chile, we say de la Pinta, la Niña, la Santa Maria, the 3 star. So he say Yasmin, Tamara, Nicole. So you 3 are reflected there. And that was a long time ago. And I remember that because later, when I was in college, I wasn't that interested in astronomy. I was more interested in the earth sciences and the tectonic plates and how the energy moved from the center of the earth and so on. But then I started reconnecting with my indigenous roots as a Mapuche, and I started learning the knowledge of my ancestors. And I learned that astronomy and they observed the sky for so long, and that really impacted the development of the culture. So then I started getting more interested in astronomy itself. So my background is not astronomy. I don't have an astronomy like formal diploma. It's physics. So I did study physics, but and now that I have moved to the United States and I start following more into the astronomy field, I just have found what Dakotah was talking about. And it's not only learning about subjects and content, it's about making a meaning of what you're learning and how you connect with it. So I think that happened to me when I was on my 20s, I think, when I started learning about my indigenous knowledge and connecting with astronomy through that way. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, but I think maybe that might be because of my folklore background. Could you say a bit about what is an indigenous approach to astronomy versus like the research academic approach to astronomy?
I think the difference that I learned is that, and which make a lot of sense to me during that time, is that we do not see ourselves like in a separate thing. Like when you do and you study subjects in a Western way, you kind of box everything and you put yourself out. Like, okay, this is astronomy, this is mathematics, this is biology, and this is every single subject. But when you start learning about how indigenous how they know what they know, and we put ourselves into the whole subject, and there is no separation between it because we belong to it and we are part of it. So we evolve with the war. And when I learned that connection, I found it being so beautiful because I found myself belonging to something that was so big that at the moment I couldn't understand it so well. So that made me wanted to keep learning.
Yeah. I love that you said part of the indigenous connection to space is that we are a part of it. And that was so beautifully reflected in your introduction to space, where your dad put you and your sisters literally up into space by saying you were the stars in Orion's belt. That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think that point about the difference between Western academic knowledge and indigenous knowledge leads really well into my next question about mental frameworks. I'm really curious about how each of you conceptualize space in your mind. So, for example, when I'm thinking about space, if I am asked a question about the universe, I close my eyes and I see a mental map of either the solar system or the galaxy, whatever we're talking about. Like, it's very data geographical for me, or cartological for me. What is it like for you? Does anyone want to go first?
Well, I could go first. I have two that I would like to share. I might have more, but those two are the ones that comes to my mind right now. The first one is just remembering that looking at the night sky from the south of Chile when I was little. That's one thing, just looking at it and wondering. And then another idea that I always remember, this might be a little bit silly. You remember what is the name of this movie? Men in Black?
Yeah.
And you remember when they had the little cat that has I don't know the name, and then it's like a visualization that take you out, and you go out, and it's like so huge, and we're just like getting smaller, smaller. Like kind of like I think not only about, I mean, I would call it for like the universe. When someone asks me like, what is your mind picture of your graphics when you hear universe, and I close my eyes, and I don't know, that visualization comes to my mind.
Yeah, it's very, very visual based, and also paying a lot of attention to the scale of everything, and how we relate to the universe in terms of size. I like that. Anyone else? Dakotah?
Yeah, I can go next. So mine, I also have a visual mental map, but it is at the scale of each category, of each subject in astrophysics. So for planets, it's like this classic solar system-esque thing where you've got multiple planets in the system. And then when I think of stars, it's kind of zoomed back, and the thought of planets doesn't really fit in. And you have a bunch of stars that are, a few light years apart from each other. You zoom back again, and then it's galaxies and like how close galaxies are to one another. And then zoom back the last time, and it's the cosmic web picture. And I guess I realized that for me, I'm always having to step into one of those mental frameworks to think about or to talk about that thing. Like if I'm talking about planets, it doesn't really make sense for my view of galaxies to factor in at all. So I think I have like a very discretized mental image for each subject, which I think makes sense as well.
Yeah, like you're opening up a different mental file
Yeah.
in your cabinet system. Okay, nice. Seven, what about you?
Yeah, so I think my idea of space is this feeling of wrestling with something that's too big for the human brain to ever really wrap your head around. To me, like space is the feeling of me like stretching my brain as far as it will go to try to conceptualize that size. And I'll never do it, which is why it's so fascinating to me. But I think another maybe picture of space that I have is kind of this in my astronomy classroom, we build a scale stellar neighborhood. And so we have the sun as a balloon with some tea lights in the middle. And then we put all the nearby stars as other balloons, like little M stars and big O stars. Um, and I have that picture of the local stellar neighborhood as like balloons with like little tiny lights in them. And at the end of class, we turn off the lights and you have this beautiful like scale stellar neighborhood. And I always think about how that contrasts with the night sky that we actually can see from outside, because you can't see all the little stars from the Earth, but you can see them but if you make your little balloon model, you do see that actually the galaxy is full of these little stars, none of which can be seen in the night sky. And so I just have this kind of, either I'm trying to wrestle with the scale of how big space is, or it's like the little light up balloons in the dark versus the night sky.
I love that your first answer was a feeling, not necessarily a visual representation of space, but a feeling of stretching. That's very interesting. And I love scale models of the solar system because they take space and they make it local. There's this long tradition, especially in indigenous folklore, of having place-based stories. And when we can scale interesting scientific things down to our lived scales, then that's just really driving that point home in a fun way. Okay, thank you for sharing your perspectives and your conceptions of space with me. I'm wondering if there's anything about your life experiences or your identities that you think influences that concept of space and your relationship to space. Anyone can start.
Yeah, I think for me, it's there are a couple really interesting space facts that allow for what I'm about to explain to make a lot of sense. And it's this feeling of being connected to everything. Like we sort of have this perspective that I guess we evolved because we evolved from animals over millions and millions of years, that requires us to feel like we are the center of the universe. Like our ancestors that thought that their survival was the most important thing to ever exist are probably the ones that survived. And so we like have this very self-centered perspective. And when you learn about space, you learn that there's not even a center. Like there isn't even a center of the universe. There isn't one. Like not that we can tell, which I think is pretty poetic. And then you realize that all of the atoms in our bodies have to have been made in stars. That's like really the only way to produce heavier elements than maybe a little bit of lithium and helium and hydrogen. And so we're actually made of all the stuff in the universe. There is no center. It's all mixed together. And that to me feels almost like as spiritual as you can get. Like in a very literal sense, we're not like metaphorically connected. We are actually physical pieces of the universe that in some way have come together. And every time I learn about space, I feel that. And when I'm looking for lessons that I can relate to my life, or maybe I'm making a video and I want to, throw a little parable into the science lesson, it feels real. Like it feels like an actual physical thing about the universe. And I think that feeling connected, not just emotionally, but knowing that physically there's a real connection between the stuff making me up and the stuff making the sun up, helps maybe like soothe the scientist in my mind a little bit for going there.
That's really nice. I like that you're talking about spirituality and science together and how they can complement each other and not butt heads, which a lot of people assume they must do. Anyone else? About experiences or life identities that have influenced your relationship to the sky.
Yeah. So growing up in rural Appalachia as a neurodivergent person was not a great experience. And I was a pretty miserable and unhappy teenager when I was like graduating high school. And I actually had no plan during high school to study space or science or anything. And so when I quit my music major, I was planning on being a band director at a high school. I wanted to be an educator. Now I am an educator. When I quit my music major and I was like, now what am I going to do with my life? I ran into Stephen Hawking's book, The Grand Design, and it was just this door to the universe that was like an escape for me. And so just growing up in this small town where, everybody knows each other, but, I was different. I was an outsider, and that was a cause for people to treat me poorly as a neurodiverse person who didn't have good social skills and didn't really fit in. And, this book was kind of this door to the universe for me, where I was like, this is a place where I can find meaning and belonging in astronomy, in being somebody who studies the stars, but it also, as Dakotah says, like made of star stuff and of like a very physical part of the universe. And so it's almost this like door out of not ever fitting in and into being able to feel like I was part of something.
I'm sensing a theme of connection here and how learning about space in different ways can get this connected feeling for you. That's great. Yasmin, do you have something similar? Great.
Yes, it's similar.
Perfect.
It also goes with a book. I read a book that is called "We're All Made of Stardust." Stardust. And then I read the book. Is from an astronomer from Chile, a Chilean astronomer. And I found it to have that, to know that, and just read it like, yeah, we are all made of stars, right? And it's so poetic, it's so beautiful, and it has so meaning. Like, sometimes you having a bad day, and then I don't know. Sometimes I just remember, hey, no, I'm not gonna get down for this. I am made of stars. Like, come on, I'm bigger than this. And I think if all the atoms have make an evolution to come to where I am today, to the person that I'm here today, I can do better than this, and I can get out of this and try to find a solution and try to move forward with my life, finding the positive and the beautiful things that are out there. So I think that's a beautiful connection. Just to think about that, how we belong, and how we're part of all of this, which is so much bigger than us, and maybe much bigger than the little problem that we might have sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Astronauts call this the overview effect. The idea that once you can gain a bigger perspective of our life on Earth, that we feel a lot more connected and less divided, which really just shows the power of knowledge, right? You all got the advantage of going up into space by learning about space.
Right. Like, that's a great point. Like, the power of knowledge, that when you have the opportunity to learn about science, and then not only learn but feel connected with science, I think it makes it such like a huge impact in people's lives, because like Seven said, that she felt so connected with the book that she read, so that helped her to find other part in her life that was so much inspiring and give her so much power to do what she's doing today. And I think I wish like everyone in the world will have the opportunity and access to formal education. They can not only teach them content, but also can make them feel connected and finding a meaning with what they're learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Dakotah, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I think after you restated the question, I think I realized that I really didn't answer the question, the identity part. But I do think that oddly enough, my identity as an athlete, which is definitely how I identified. Like I'm Black, but I always my whole life identified as an athlete, up until that point. And I think it was the crack in that identity that sort of allowed the floodgates to just bust open and be able to feel connected to the universe in this way. It was almost like I was needing something like that. So I definitely look back at that identity and sort of the beginning of the end of feeling that way and identifying that way absolutely influenced my perspective, my relationship with space, because it kind of facilitated, it made it a little bit easier. It motivated me a little bit more to try and find those connections and like find that next big thing that can be a center part of my life.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that addition. When like one part of your identity gets rocked or you have to question it, it often leads to questioning a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah.
So that's great. Okay, now we've talked a bit about your perspectives of the sky, and I want to get into how you share those perspectives with others. So I have some questions for each of you. Seven, I want to start with you. You write both science fiction and science nonfiction. How similar or different do these modes of communication feel to you? And like, do you get a sense for if one is better or whatever for engaging with an audience for you?
I think that the big thing about writing both science fact and science fiction is that they have the same goal. With science fiction, my favorite science fiction is Star Trek, and Star Trek is this beautiful, not completely perfect, but significantly better picture of a future where people work together to explore and to learn and to find meaning in the universe. And what I feel like, something that we need really right now is that what are we hoping for? Where's the place we want to be? When we defeat the horrors, where do we want to be as a society? And so I think that, writing hopeful science fiction, can give people an idea of like, oh, I want to live in a world that's completely sustainable. Think like writing solar punk or I guess that solar punk is really the genre that comes to mind. But and to kind of contrast that with science fact writing, that's also me trying to be like the almost the gateway drug to hope. And yeah, I want people to say, wow, I didn't understand this scientific thing before, but now I understand it and I appreciate it, and it is literally like that gateway drug to like loving science. And kind of like how Dakotah was talking about, he was watching all these documentaries, all that science nonfiction can be that gateway for somebody to say, oh, well, maybe I feel a little bit more connected to the universe now, and maybe I could see myself as a scientist. And, maybe I could be somebody who is using science to make the world a better place. So in science fiction, I'm trying to say, here is a future that is worth striving for, where everybody is accommodated for, and we're sustainable, we're protecting the planet. And then in science fact, I want to say, hey, here's how we, practically we really get there by improving science literacy and by giving people, something to hope for, and to say, here's this climate solution, here's what we can be doing, here's A to B.
I love that.
Something to hope for is what I'm trying to do with both cases.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for saying when the horrors desist.
We will persist. We will overcome the horrors. Every liberation for everybody around the world. We will prevail.
Yeah. And we need both fiction and science to get us there. Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you. Dakotah, you do a lot of SciComm online. That means you reach people who don't always opt into science content, which you said earlier is something you enjoy doing. Have you noticed any interesting patterns in beliefs about space from non-astro enthusiasts? And anyone is welcome to answer, but I really want to hear Dakotah's first.
Yeah, definitely. So that is one of the cool things about making short form content that just gets blasted out. Every once in a while, I'll hit like the flat Earth segment, which isn't great, and we don't need to talk about that too much. But a couple of things that I've noticed from people that genuinely engage and are interested in space content is one that I can see them making connections to some of the beliefs that they already have. Like oftentimes they'll get comments, we'll be talking about a supermassive black hole or something, and it weighs as much as 1 billion suns. And people will like tie it back to how they feel about the universe being connected, or they'll tie it back to God and say that God is amazing. And I see like something similar that I feel myself when I'm studying these things and trying to make connections, is that it like bolsters how you feel about existence. And if you have like some strong belief system, when you see something magnificent like this, it bolsters that up. And this is a part of the reason that I've developed this this belief and or value system with science, that it's important that we help reveal what some of the meaning may be, aside from just saying the facts, even if we're creating that ourselves, which in a way is I think our job. And another thing, so reinforcement of some of the beliefs that they already have. Another thing that I've noticed is that people are naturally scientists. I'll talk about something in planets, and just yesterday I had this comment from this person. I was talking about how atmospheres evolve over time and how we try to look at different planets at different locations and study their atmospheres, see what's going on. And somebody was like, oh, this seems like something that would be pretty cool to do simulations on and simulate how an atmosphere evolves depending on where it is. And I'm like, yeah, there's an entire branch of astrophysicists that are just doing theoretical simulations of exoplanet atmospheres. You're thinking like an astrophysicist, like you're thinking like a scientist. And I don't think that most people realize that just coming at something with curiosity is what scientists do. Like that is the first domino in the process of science, is asking that question. And I really like to have that back and forth and reinforce that. And so, yeah, reinforcement of beliefs that already exist and this like budding of scientific mindset. These are patterns that I see in the astro enthusiasts, the non-astro enthusiasts.
That's great. It's great to hear that that's happening online, and hearing you say it is especially poignant, I think, because you have this background of having a later start to astro. So you know what it's like to add astro knowledge on top of your pre-existing beliefs. And it doesn't just reinforce them, it expands them. I think that's what's so powerful about the way you do science communication, is that you are letting people keep their spiritual and religious beliefs, but add the science on top of it, which is great. Seven, I know you use the internet. Do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I recently started a TikTok channel, and I cross-posted to YouTube and also on it to Instagram. And one thing that I think is particularly relevant is that, you know, we're kind of in this crisis of, in the United States, people not having as much trust in science as they used to. And part of that, I think, is there's been a notable increase in anti-science voices. RFK, the biggest podcast that people listen to are off like the Joe Rogan podcast, things like that. They are all often promoting anti-science things. You hear anti-science voices in Congress. There's really been a very loud increase of it lately. And so it's up to us as scientists to combat that. So whether we like it or not, a lot of people get their news and their opinions from TikTok and from Instagram Reels and from YouTube Shorts and things like that. So that's where we need to be. We need to meet people at the places where they are getting their information, and we need to be the voice that says, here's not just, you know, here's my science, but here's how I arrived at that conclusion. And here's what the scientific method actually is. And this is the method that scientists use when they develop a vaccine, or when they are telling you, hey, maybe you could get an electric car, or, you know, maybe there's some way, maybe you can plant a like, you know, indigenous plant in your garden to increase the wildlife and to improve the environment in your local area. So I think that when we get on things like TikTok and YouTube and we're saying, hey, here's the scientific method, here's all these beautiful things that came out of this chain of thought, that's building public trust. It's meeting people where they are, and it's you know, it's increasing the science in this glut of anti-science content.
Yeah, it's important work that science communicators do. Absolutely. I want to pivot a little bit to Yasmin. You are Mapuche. You grew up in Chile. You're indigenous. And because you grew up in Chile, you had a different and, in my opinion, better view of the southern sky, a view of the night sky in the southern hemisphere than we did up here. You talked a little bit about indigenous versus like Western academia beliefs. Have you noticed any differences between like southern and northern relationships to the sky, indigenous or not?
I don't know if, well, when it comes to indigenous knowledge, and then after I start learning about my own roots, and then I moved to the United States and start working, I have a line of work that focus on recovering indigenous way of knowing, not only in the United States, but globally. And it's been beautiful to see that and to learn from other indigenous communities how they are also look at the sky and how the observation and interpretation of the signs that they saw give them the clue to make decisions that were key for their communities to survive. And it's the same with the indigenous communities in Chile. I think for example, in Navajo community, they don't see the eclipses as a good thing. So it's not a good thing that happened, and when they're not allowed to watch it. For us in the south of Chile, the eclipses are also not a good thing. It's a sign that we need to be aware what is our surroundings. When we need to aware of our environment, we need to be socially aware what's happening with our communities across, because something is happening. And now, if you think about this, like when it's a total solar eclipse, and it's the middle of the day, and you have the plants, you have the birds, you have everything that's outside, right? And you have the sun shining, giving the energy, the plants are getting their energy, doing photosynthesis, growing, the birds are getting the energy from the sun, like getting warm, enjoying the day. But it's not normal that just expected without, from one moment to another, then that energy is blocked. It's not coming. So they're not receiving it. And that makes, especially nature, they get a little bit confused. So things are happening around. So it was beautiful to see that even though we're so separate, we're so far apart, we still interpreting things in the similar way. And so, yeah, I think that was nice to learn. When I take the difference between Western and indigenous knowledge, I think Western knowledge, I think, is also great. Like we have done a lot of good things thanks to the type of research that is happening from that side. But at the same time, I think there are different ways of knowing, and we cannot like I have my own way of knowing, but at the same time I know there are other ways of knowing, but I don't think the other ways of knowing are wrong. I think if I learn more about the other ways of knowing, maybe I can do mine stronger. And I also think if we share ways of knowing, maybe we can find clues or answers for things that we haven't done it before, because there are different perspectives. Everyone is looking at the same phenomenon with a different lens, and that it can really be helpful, not for the communities that involve itself, but for humanity. So that's something that I do with some of the projects that I have. I try to bring the different perspective, being indigenous and non-indigenous, those different ways of knowing, to come to a safe space to share what is shareable in order to find common ground. And maybe from that common ground, we can give our hands and we can walk the middle together. So, yeah. I don't know if I went to another side of the question or...
No, that was perfect. And I love that you brought up that different ways of knowing things and different ways of seeing things are equally valid. They can be equally valid, and you can hold multiples of them in your head at once, which I think is a practice that is more common among indigenous groups.
Yeah, and I think what also bring back to the point that Seven was sharing regarding like how important it is for us to communicate the things with the general public, and that our differences does not make us apart. It's the whole opposite. Like the more that we learn from each other, we can find the strength. I have something that maybe I'm not very good at it, but you might have that, even though we're a little bit different, but we can be, if we are together, we can be stronger. So and that is very important in the work that we all do, like how we communicate this with the public, that it doesn't matter if you think different way, we all want to learn from each other, and opening spaces, safe space for people to come and share what is shareable. That's also something that's important, to open people to come and share what is shareable, so they're not like forced to share. And you share depending how you feel in the environment. If you feel that you're in an environment that you will be respected and that your value, that your ideas really are taken in consideration, and people's trying to listen, but not only with their ears, but also with their hearts, I think that is when beautiful things happen.
It certainly is. Yes. And I love that the three of you each share your way of seeing the sky and your perspective of space with others. So let's talk about how that can happen. How can other people start seeing space from a perspective more like yours? And what do you think they would gain from that? This is for all of you.
Yeah, I can go. So a way to see space that I do, kind of what algorithm my brain starts up when I'm learning something new is what here is familiar? Like what are we seeing that is a pattern that we've seen somewhere else? In space and larger systems, smaller systems. I think something that a lot of people are familiar with is how at different scales, sometimes things look similar. If you've seen the cosmic web structure, it looks like any network you can imagine. The network of neurons in your brain, the network of fungal roots in the forest underground, the network of highways going across the United States. And so there's some connection there. And what is it? And you probably need to gather experts in like a dozen different fields to really get at the roots at what it is. But there's something about networks that are all connected. And I think that it's very helpful to think about where else you've seen this thing that you're talking about. And that's what I try to do when I'm talking about something in space. And sometimes those connections are in like the systems that we have in our relationships with other people, or the way that society is kind of a pendulum that's swinging back and forth. There's countless examples of these. And so I always try to make this connection, like, what else is this like? Where have we seen this before? Because the laws of physics are the laws of physics, and there aren't things that are operating under some other rules. So I feel like it's a safe place to start. And ultimately, for me, what I think you can gain from that, in a lot of ways, it's sort of like, it can be an anxiety release valve. When things feel like really bad or really pressure, you're having a horrible time, realize that, you're going through a cycle, and everything does it. The Earth cycles around the sun cycles around the Milky Way. The newest DESI observations that are highlighting some discrepancies in the expansion rate of the universe may indicate, this is a little bit preliminary, but the universe expansion may slow down and could even contract one day. And so like the universe itself might be cyclical. And for me, that's like, it's very comforting to just know for a fact that it's never going to stay all bad. It's going to change. And your good days are going to come crashing down too, but people don't worry about that too much. So yeah, I think try to find the connections in space, because they're definitely there. You have mental frameworks that can already help you understand this new information. And I think that when you realize that these mysterious things aren't necessarily so foreign, it can make you more comfortable. It can release some anxiety and some tension that you have, and help you just feel more present with yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome. Look for the patterns because they are there. Nice. Who wants to go next?
Because my introduction to the universe was this, Stephen Hawking, The Grand Design book. I wrote my own book, and that's how I hope people will. I hope that's how people will connect with science, because I think what Yasmin said was really, really interesting, in that, we tend to put science and sciences in boxes, and then we put ourselves in a box, and that box is not connected to the science boxes. Because my book is about the Drake equation, and about how do we find other civilizations in the Milky Way that maybe they're like us, maybe we could talk to. that book covers astronomy, geology, chemistry, physics, biology. All of these sciences are really, really interconnected in ways that people tend to put them in boxes. But one of the messages of that book is that all of these sciences they just flow into each other. And so if someone can read this book and they can say, wow, maybe it is actually that, chemistry and biology and geology are all connected deeply, maybe that will help them break down the walls of those boxes of here's this science and that science and that science. And then maybe that will also help them break down that wall of here's science and here's me all the way over here. Here I'm a person reading a science book, and maybe that is the gateway that I need to think about a career in science, or to read more science news, or to get more involved, or really start to appreciate what kind of climate actions I need to be doing. How can I get involved with protecting the earth, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all connected, like Dakotah said. Yeah, so find the connections. That's great. Yasmin, how can people see the sky a bit more like you?
Well, I think it goes to the same point, like, actually, where we have been talking, like how you feel, how you find that root and that connection that make that observation being giving you those feelings of belonging, those feelings that there is so much out of here, and at the same time it looks so far, and it looks so like small, but it's so big, and I am so part of it. I wish for the public, I think it's great if you have events happening around your city. You have activities. There is a podcast about science or astronomy. Do you think it will be cool to listen? Do it. Go listen to the podcast. If there's an event around your city, go to the event. Find your friend or your sister or your family. Let's go check it out. Bring a coffee and have a good time. I think making those connections happen we need those connections for ourselves to find our own identity and how we connect with everything around. But at the same time, the other humans that are around us are part of that as well. So if you go and you take it, sometimes it's hard to be outside, especially depending where you are. But I trust that if you go to science events, science activities that are open to the public, you will find people that are open to talk, open to engage, and build community, because you'll find it being so important. Like, I moved 7 years ago. I came here alone with my son from Chile. I have no family here. Second, this is not my official language. So I was very scared to be here alone. But then I started putting myself out. It was a little bit hard at the beginning, but I started learning, knowing my neighbors, making friends. So now I have built a community, and I have the sense that I feel connected. I help them. They help me when I need it. So I think it is important to feel that connection, not only with the sky or with science and education, but also with your community.
I love that. We need
So
more.
go there, go
Yes.
out.
Yes, we need community now more than ever, perhaps. So thank you for that reminder.
Yes.
Okay, in the last minute that we have, I would love each of you to share where people can follow your work, where they can find it. So I'll go in reverse order on my screen. Dakotah, you're at the bottom. Where can people find your work?
So you can find me on pretty much all the social media platforms: YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, whatever else exists, at DT Star Kid. I post videos pretty frequently. I probably post the most on TikTok. But yeah, I post videos pretty frequently. Yeah, at DT Star Kid.
Very cool. Yasmin, what about you?
Yeah, I do also have social media channels like Instagram. I do not put a lot of like work-related or astronomy-related videos on Instagram. I share a little more about my life. But if you want to follow, I'm good with that too. But if you can look at me on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I only post all the events that I'm being part of, all the reports that I think they're interesting to share with others, job opportunities as well, and what we're doing here at Astronomer Without Borders. I will suggest to follow Astronomer Without Borders on social media, on Instagram and Facebook. We are having many more events to come. So these events, I hope, help you to find connections and resources. So yeah, please follow us on Instagram and social media.
Amazing. Yes, that's exactly what AWB is here to do. Seven, what about you? Where can people find your work and your book?
Well, I keep everything is on my website, 7rasmussen.com. I'm also very active on both Blue Sky and TikTok. And you can find me at Too Many Spectra.
That's great. Do you have a date for the book yet?
It's
Rough.
supposed to come out in December or maybe January.
Okay.
We will keep our fingers crossed that the publication machine keeps on trucking.
All of my digits are crossed for you. Can't wait to read that book. Seven, Yasmin, Dakotah, thank you so much for being amazing panelists, for bringing your perspective about the night sky and day sky to Astronomers Without Borders for our Global Astronomy Month panel. Andrew, I believe we that's all we have.
I know. I can't believe that. Oh, we're already at the end of the hour.
I
It went
know.
by so fast. I loved listening to all the conversation going on. And let me just get everybody in here like that. There we go. One big happy family. Love it. It was great. It was a great conversation. And it's going to live on YouTube, on our Facebook page. And we invite people to come and watch it. And I do have one question that stood out from the audience that I wanted to share. Moya, and let me just get it up on the screen. It's from Anna, and she is in Mexico. And Anna, here I'm going to put it up and I'll ask it. It's could you share some short-term strategies to help the astronomical academic community work style become more diversity friendly, meaning gender, language, culture, etc.?
Oh, I mean, so
Mhm.
many ways.
Short-term strategies. Yeah.
Short-term strategies. I think it starts with connecting with other people who are in those diverse communities. We are out here, but there aren't that many of us, so we aren't as loud necessarily all the time. But all of the people on this panel are doing amazing work out in SciComm and astronomy education. What do other people have to say?
If you don't have an outreach committee, make one. Start doing outreach. Get out in your community and go to local farmers market, local little street festivals. Those are great places to set up a booth and just have a little physics demo. Have one of those little bicycle wheels you can spin and have the angular momentum. Put up a little demo. Just talk to people, talk to kids. That is probably my most short-term advice is start doing outreach in your community, and those little like street festivals are a great place to start.
I will say something similar. I think I will imagine there are organizations or groups or small communities around where you are, Anna, and maybe you can talk with the teacher at the university, and you can do like open talks on a Saturday afternoon or in the morning, offer coffee and bring and send invites to those specific communities and invite them to come to this talk, and then after the talk, let's share a coffee and talk to each other. So that way you start building the connection with those communities, and maybe they can get more, they can see themselves in the future being part of the university.
Great idea. Cool.
All right. Well, guys, thank you very much for this wonderful event. I want to thank Moya for moderating. Excellent. Thank you very much. This is obviously just one of many other events that we're going to be holding all throughout the month. This is going to be the next one is on actually in just a few days on April, I believe 15th. We're going to be having cultural storytelling, which is going to be interesting. We'll have some special guests are from our national coordinator community joining us, and our very own AWB community joining us, telling stories about the night sky from different cultural perspectives, which is going to be really very interesting, very exciting. I think have different perspectives right across the globe being shared. So we'll have that in a few days, and there's many other events. Some actually last throughout the month. We've got things like even live streams of the night sky through telescopes coming up. We've also got different perspectives from some of our partners, like the American Astronomical Society, that have their own beautiful Global Astronomy Month events that they do in-house, and we're sharing them. And you can visit all of that from our main Global Astronomy Month page at gam-awb.org. And if you like what you see, you like what the kinds of things that AWB is involved in, the outreach, providing this kind of different viewpoints and perspectives on the world and the power that astronomy has in building community, and you'd like to support it, well, you can donate today. Very easy. We've got the link in the comment section. So please go ahead. Even a few dollars makes a huge difference, allows us to of difference for us. Thanks again for everyone's participation. It was a great event. And I'm Andrew Fizakis, your host with Astronomers Without Borders. Remember, one people, one sky. And until the next video, clear skies, everyone. Bye-bye.
From the pale blue dot to the distant stars, we are one. One people, one sky.